Yeah, yeah.
So that we can start.
Yeah, as any one is there.
It's only 220.
Yeah, yeah, one is what we need to start.
Yeah, where we need to accept that code.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. What of this?
I don't know, to just only in the context. Yeah.
No.
Okay, on the table. Maybe I'll write for.
అది అక్కడే ఉండేమండి అది అక్కడే టచ్ అది లేకపోతే ఇది ఉంటుంది ఇది ఉంది పెట్టండి పెట్టి తర్వాత 5 minutes అవుతుంది అది అది కట్టకపోతే కలిగి రావాలి మళ్ళీ చేతి చైర్ మీద నిల్చొస్తుంది నాట్ దిస్ చైర్ తీసుకుంటే చైర్ మాస్ చేంజ్ చేస్తాను అంటే ప్రత్యేక ఓకే అది We can put it on that.
అది ఫిట్ అవ్వదంటే కొంచెం పైకి వెళ్ళాలండి ఒక పైకి వెళ్ళాలండి కొద్దిగా పైకి ఇస్తారు వన్ మైక్
ఇంకానా
వంకర అన్న పర్వాలేదు టైం అయిపోతుంది ఫోర్త్ మన లాంగ్ టు అది పనిచేయదు గమ్ ఫోర్త్
మళ్ళీ దానిపై ఇంకోటి ఇవ్వండి రాసి పెట్టండి You have to always keep it like that. పైకి అట్లా పెడితే
చూడండి
ప్రస్తుతం ఇంకా రెండు పెట్టండి ఇక్కడ ఒకటి ఇట్లా అడ్డంగా పెట్టి
అడ్డంగా పెడితే బరువు సరిపోతుంది సత్య 1 hour సరిపోతుంది
లేదు నిలవదండి జారుతుందండి అది అందుకని కింద పెట్టండి కింద పెట్టలేదు అక్కర్లేదు కింద అక్కర్లేదు
దీన్ని ఏం చేద్దాం ప్రాబ్లం అయితే
ఈ చైర్స్ push the back of this board. Yeah. With the other one, go back, yeah. You can stack this up. Watch the wheel.
ఇద్దరు పక్కన కూర్చో call right with you. So it's written over it's practicing for more than 50 years. Hello. Hello. 25 years. Yeah.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం అండి. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ జాయినింగ్ ద ఇమిగ్రేషన్ సెమినార్. మనం తెలుగు కళా సమితి అయినప్పటికీ బికాస్ అవర్ అటార్నీస్ ఆర్ మోర్ ఫెమిలియర్ విత్ ఇంగ్లీష్, we conduct the program in English and all the questions you can ask, okay, and if you need help we make sure that it gets translated. This is a weekend, so lawyers will always wish you a happy weekend, but remind you that they can in no way guarantee it, right? So, and that's the typical lawyer lingo, and there is a lot of information that they're going to share, and because we don't understand a lot of legal aspects, we have the experts here in various fields of the legal discipline. Okay. Okay, they are going to explain us, and this is going to be an interactive session. So please feel free to ask questions. We're also live telecasting this on YouTube. So if any of your family members or others are willing to ask questions, they can pose also. We'll be monitoring and asking the attorneys the same question too. Okay. With that, I request Madhu Anna to introduce our attorneys and invite them on stage.
Thank you, Satya. Do you hear me? Thank you. Before introducing the attorneys and the guest of honor for the chief guest, I would like to introduce my TFAS board members. First of all, Secretary Satya Venkat Satya Dada, he is very much here. By the way, I'm the president of the TFAS, Madhu Anna, as all of you know. And my vice president is here, Prasad Gudpurigaru. And my community chairperson, Varalakshmi, is very much here. And our most important treasurer, Vani Kunisittigaru, is here. Our membership trustee, Arundhati, is very much here. And the camera holding lady, Lata Madisetti, she is youth services. The volunteers are in her area, and because of her, we are able to do any event easily and successfully. And I do have two more trustees, Seshagiri Kambhametu, who is on trip to India, and then Lokendra Girkala. Oh, he's very much here, but the coffee is here. He's looking after the certain arrangement. So let's give a big applause to Lokendra. Thank you very much. And well, TFAS, as all of you know, it's called Telugu Finance Society. The TFAS focuses only mainly on, it is established 40 years back, focusing on arts and the Telugu language, Telugu Samskriti. It's our Telugu culture in simpler way. So these two are the main areas. We are serving the Indian community, all the NRIs who have been settled, who have been living in the US, especially New Jersey area, since 40 years. There were about 200 board of directors served this, all these 40 years. They have done extraordinary, wonderful job. And that's why TFAS has become so popular, so successful in New Jersey community. Many of you know already. And we do several mandatory events during every year. There are 5 mandatory events. One is picnic, 2 is Deepavali celebrations or Diwali celebrations, and Sankranti celebrations, and the Ugadi celebrations, and the most beautiful Trimurti cultural music festival. In addition to that, these days the issues and the concerns from the all the New Jersey Telugu people are being noticed. So we, not only me, my previous presidents also have done such a good job arranging the seminars, webinars, etc. And my team, as I answer 22, 24, 24, we started on June 21st, and we started with a useful, not only the arts, we want to focus on the useful for the needy people. We have many visitors. Those days, it is all green cards, and the 40 years, 50 years attorney Collins here, 40 Prasad Garu is very much here. But these days, the issues and the topics are different. So we have organized a free medical camp on the June 9th, as soon as we took the charge on June 1st. And that made us happy and satisfied serving the community in addition to the arts and music. So then we did a arts program, Jyotirmay, and then we did the mandatory picnic. Now next is the most important for the NRIs is the immigration. And nowadays it is not only H1 people, immigration only, but most of us have become citizens. Our second generation is in our home. So we know that how many problems, business litigations we have. We are in the business, and we have real estate, and we have homes, and investing in the business, real estate. So many areas are there. That's why we invited 3 wonderful attorneys. Kavita Ramaswamy. Kavita Ramaswamy is very well known to me since last 2014. By the way, in addition to TFAS president, I'm also one of the executive. I can be called as executive director of the Sai Ruttapitam. We both are executive directors. We have so many relations, so many issues we keep discussing. So I thought Kavita ji would be appropriate person to handle the legal matters. So I requested her and I approached her and she has done a wonderful support. She reserved the reports for public reference and she brought call and now another topic I'll talk about the Padmaja after a minute. So Kavita ji very much she has been here in more than 25 years and supporting all the NRIs, all the Indian community, whether it's Tamil, Telugu, etc., etc., etc. But she does a wonderful job. She's kind-hearted, humble, and she answers every questions. And she's so due diligent, and she handles the papers, and she answered my questions to my person also who has been got the green card. I request happily Srimati Kavita ji to come and occupy this stage and she will continue 2 more minutes. I don't want to waste the time, but still there is some respect it has to be there. Then now the Kavita ji, when I ask, pardon? Yeah, I'm calling. Kavita ji, please come. Yeah, now when I called Kavita ji, she said, we have another 50 years experience in the New Jersey call and he handles Kavita ji, I said immigration, but yeah, I want Carlton Hansen Jr., but he doesn't look like a junior, right? He's very much senior. Let's give a applause to Carlton Hansen. Carl, General Drafting Real Estate Wills Company Incorporation. Carl, please come. Randy, Daishay, one of my trustees.
Yeah, he's calling.
Please be seated. Kavita is a Tamilian and Carl is an Englishman and our organization is Telugu Finance Society.
He speaks many languages.
Telugu Kada Samiti. So Telugu Kada Samiti organization will not shut without a Telugu guest also. So I looked around and I met her in a business meeting where she is helping us in with so much documentation. So I'm amazed with her detailing and all other details for our pharma industry, what we have been discussing the last week we were at the Bati beach and I met her, but she said she already knew me, so her husband Suri also know me. Both of them are also from the Sai Rathapeetham. Hats off to Sai Rathapeetham. It gave me a wonderful introduction to the New Jersey community. Padmaja also 25 years senior, more than 25 years, and by the way, she is the first Indian woman for the south side of NY Bar Association. That's New York Bar Association. That's an accomplishment. And as I said, what does she do? Business litigation and intellectual property. I'm very much interested, and many of us, our team is very much interested in intellectual property. Definitely, you'll ask a question. Prasad Garu is also there on the business litigation. So they have so many questions. Padmaja, we a warm welcome to you to the stage of your TFAS. Thanks to TFAS to meet all of you and all the audiences. Please feel free. We won't disturb you. That's all. It is the attorney's control.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhurna Garu, and everybody from TFAS for the opportunity. This is a awareness program. That's what I say. That so many of us have so many questions, and we always wanted the right resource and not become internet lawyers. So if you go to the internet, there's so much of information which is not correct as well. So this kind of meeting and the panel is very much required for us to know the right information through the right source. So thank you, TFAS, for organizing this. And Madhurna Garu, as he explained, we have been working for such a long time, from I think almost 10 years we knew each other, and from thanks to Sai Rathapeetham, where we try to work with for cultural programs, and both of us are executive directors there, and we try to address many community issues as well. So it's an honor to know Madhurna Garu, and all of many of you I know already from Sai Rathapeetham, and thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here, and I would pass on the mic to Carl and say.
I need to push.
Yeah, it's already on.
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me here. I'm here to answer any questions you have about real estate. I also do wills, so if you have any questions about that, hopefully I can answer them for you too. So I guess that's about it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Madhuvan Nagaru and TFAS for arranging this. I think this is a great initiative, sharing knowledge with experts and the community. So I'm glad to be part of this and look forward to helping you all with any questions you may have. My practice is intellectual property, which is patents, trademarks, copyrights, and also business litigation. I've been practicing in New York for more than 20 years, and currently I'm with the law firm of Dunnington and Butler in New York. Thank you.
It's good. Thank you. I would like to a token of appreciation in stop the end. We want to do it in the beginning itself, so that time is saved. I request Prasad Garu to present a bouquet to Kartaram Swami. I request Satya to present a bouquet to Carlson. I request Vani Guru to present a bouquet to Padmavila. Photos, please. Satya, stay one. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm again I like to introduce myself. I'm Kavita Ramasamy. I'm 100% of my practice is business immigration, and we both have an office in Talmadge Road in Edison, and I practice immigration 100%, and business immigration is my specialty. And I'm practicing for almost 25 years now, and I have my own practice for almost 20 years now. So having said that, I would like to, so the format is we will probably say a few words about the immigration and the topic, and then we'll open to question. Is that okay? Okay, so with regarding to the immigration, before that, I would like to put a disclaimer that whatever, this is only a general and informational purpose, only whatever we are answering. I can take the privilege to say for them also that this is only, there's no attorney-client relationship based on the questions or anything we answer. So it is only a general and informational purpose only, because this law is very, very complex. So you cannot apply whatever we say or whatever we answer for one person may not be applicable to everybody as well. So take it as an information and knowledge sharing. And if you have any specific case, please contact your attorney. So I just wanted to say that disclaimer before we start this. And I would like to, before also another thing I always say whenever I go for a panel is with immigration, right? Whenever anybody comes here, I always want to say that you should know, be aware, you should know what visa you are in. So if you are coming in a H4 or F1 or H1 or any visa, you should be aware, at least have some general knowledge or what the visa is about and how, what is the timeline for that visa, and understand what is an I-94. And nowadays, unlike before, the I-94 is not stamped to or stapled to the passport. So you have to go to the CBP and get the I-94, because, many parents come to now. So you have to be aware that, you have to, every time somebody comes in, go to the CBP website and get the I-94 and check how long they have given the I-94. So understand what is an I-94 and what is an unlawful presence, what is out of status. These are some simple terms which you should be, anybody coming should be aware, and anybody coming on an immigrant or a non-immigrant visa should be aware of the limitations of what their visa allows them to do and what they cannot do. And particularly the deadlines. I would like to understand what is it, because many times what happens is I get people from H4 where they forget to extend the H4 visa. So what happens is, first time when they come out, come on a H4, they always go for stamping. They go for stamping and they bring them on a H4. There is no petition filed here. So there are people who think that every time only when they travel, they have to go to the consulate and come on a H4. That's not true. So you have to, whenever the H1 is extended, you have to extend the H4 also, because the I-94 is the document which controls your stay here. So you have to have the I-94 valid every time you are here. You live here or you stay here. The I-94 is the one control. So make sure that the H4 is extended. And there, I mean, some cases like, when the passport is for a lesser duration than your H1B visa, the when you come, the CBP will cut down the I-94 end date to the passport date. So many of them don't even see it. They think that they have the the I-797 valid until 2026, but the passport is there until 2025. The CBP will cut the Customs and Border Protection is what we call a CBP, and they will cut down the I-94 until the passport validity date. They will not even see it because nowadays you have to go to the CBP and look for it. So they assume that the visa is granted until 2026 because they have an I-94 stamped, an I-94 with the 797. So they think that is what it is. So whenever they come for extension, we say that, because you traveled after you got the extension approved. So whatever is the latest I-94, that is what controls, and they come in 2026, whereas the I-94 got expired in 2025. Many cases we come to know about this. So all the time, I mean, every time we come in the travel and about the visa, you should have some basic knowledge or talk to your attorney before you travel and see like what is required. So these are some basic things I want you to be aware. And for F1 students, there are some timelines where you have to apply your OPT and the STEM OPT, because you have to do within 30 days. And if you have changing the status to F1, you have to make sure that the starting validity and the duration is appropriate to the F1 change of status, because many times we have the questions or denials, which becomes very difficult afterwards to, the corrected, or, it's always better to be aware and do certain things in time. So note it down, note down the dates and be very, very cautious with the time, because we are in this country and it's a very simple thing we can do to look into what our status is and what are the timelines. Note it down. H1 visa, you can do 6 months ahead. I understand there are so many complications in that with the projects ending and things like that, but just follow up and don't miss, because 1 week before, like we get, oh, my H1B visa is expiring this week. But in that case, we even have LCA, we have to wait for 7 days, 7 calendar days. So it becomes very difficult, we are past the deadline, like, it is now you are leaving, you are adding another variable to this, and it's the discretion of the officer at that time to grant it or not. Otherwise, you have to travel again, so much expense, because you have to take the whole family again to India to get the stamping. And there's so many things you have to be aware of it and because I get so many of these cases on a weekly basis. So it is just a simple thing like which you can take care of it before, 6 months before you are eligible to extend your H1B. And another thing I wanted to say is green card, whenever you have the opportunity, file for the labor certification as soon as you come here, the first year or second year, whenever the company is ready to file, just file it, because many of us come with an intention to go back, but most of us, end up not just staying here. So most of us have done that, no, I'm going back, this green card, if I apply, then that might cause trouble. So that cause, that makes them not to file it. And after 3-4 years, they realize that now the kids cannot move. So they have to be here, and otherwise some work or something, they that time, because nowadays, even to get into the I-140 stage, it takes 2 years. the prevailing wage to get for the perm itself, it's a labor certification itself is more than 6 months time. So it takes almost 2 years to get to the 140 stage. But when you apply for the green card and when you start your green card in the 4th or 5th year, most of the time I get that request also. I'm in my 5th year, we have to file the green card now. So the 5 years they wasted because they were thinking there's a standard reply I get from many of them stating that I was always thinking that I wanted to go back. So whether you want to go back or not, just put in that application. Just put in that application. That's not going to hurt you. Just be in the line. You can always decide later on whether you want the green card or not. So that is another thing I wanted to tell you. Even for the citizen, people who have become citizens, for the brother and sister or the sibling or parents, parents, at least they come under the immediate relative category. But for the sisters and brothers, people who have become citizens for 15 years, they come now and say that, I want to apply for my brother. It takes 20 years plus now. But still, at least, if you put in, just it's an I-130 application, you can file on your own with the help of an attorney or just ask them somebody, there are so many guidance with the USCIS website itself. Just put in an application. Let it be on the line. So whether your sibling is coming or not, let them decide later, or you can decide later. Just putting in an application and be in the line is not going to hurt, because most of the time that also happens because now that their kids wanted to come, so it is always, the age out will be there, and because it's 20 years. So these things I would suggest you to do. So these are the basic awareness thing I would talk about the H1B. So I'm sorry, the immigration. So coming to what are the current updates regarding the immigration, that, I would say that there is an H1B modernization. I don't know how many of you are interested in H1B. So, but still, for the sake of people online, so I would probably also say a few words about the modernization of the H1B rule now. So there are so many things planned for the H1B to prevent fraud. The goal is to prevent the lottery fraud. How many companies, how many people, one person applies for 20 registrations for the lottery and takes up the cap. So to prevent all these things, the last October, the H1B Modernization Act, some of the in phases it's getting implemented. So the first is the lottery, that it is now the beneficiary focus rather than that is focused on still that, the petitioner cannot collaborate with other petitioners and file for multiple lotteries, but still it is more of beneficiary focus now, and you can file online H1B, which is a very, very good thing, where people can file online. So the last minute people can really benefit out of it also, because the same day you get the receipt number, and the fees have increased. And next year, even the lottery fees is going to increase. The fees and the asylum fee has been implemented for the business immigration. For the H1B is all the I-129 forms and the I-140. There is a new fee for asylum, where USCIS can, there are so many people who come on asylum now. So to offset the cost, they are trying to pass it on to the business immigration. So the I-129 petitions and the I-140 will be taking care of that, the cost. So there will be a 600 fee for more than 25 employees, and less than 25 employees, there will be a $300 fee, additional fee than the cost, whatever the cost is. The premium processing, and again, one of the reasons why you have to do it much earlier is because premium processing is now 3 weeks, 15 business days instead of 15 calendar days. So it's almost like 3 weeks. So you have to, even though it's a premium processing, you pay additional $2,805 for the premium processing. So still, you have to be considering that it's still 3 weeks. So if they issue an RFE, again, after you respond, it's 3 weeks again. So be cautious and plan ahead. So that is one thing I wanted to say about the H1B program. And there are so many things and phases they are planning to implement. Whatever is there, they are probably going to formalize it with regarding to the no itinerary is needed and things like that. So probably we can, whenever they implement it and things like that, we can have another session and discuss it, because I don't want to bore you with what is coming. So then, the important question about what about the layoffs, H1B layoffs, H1B remote location and things like that. So H1B layoff, anything, if there is a layoff and if the I-94 is valid, anybody has a 60 days time. They all, I mean, many of them are aware of it. One time in one of the, in that period, when the H1B, the approval period, only once you can use that. And it's 60 days, you have time to change your status or find another employer or refile with the same employer, find another project and refile with the same employer. So if you don't get it in 60 days, I would suggest that either go back to India or change the status, or if you change the status to B1 or F1, so you can change the status, and if you get the project again, you can come back to the H1B status, and you can only in that case start the work after you get the approval. So any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer later on this. So this is about the thing, and the location. Definitely there is a in a year, short-term placement is around 30 days. You can go to a different location than what is on the LCA, but other than that, you have to file an amendment. So these are the general things about H1B. And if you miss the H1B lottery, there are various options available. Like many of you don't know that, with your, that you may be qualifying for a different visas, like O1 visas. And if you have, that is one of the options. If you are Mexicans, Canadian citizens, you can come on TN visa. If you are a Singapore and Australian, you can come something on a E3 visa. So there are and cap exempt cases are also there. So explore those areas for if you miss the H1B lottery. Consider what are the other options you have. Many of them may be qualified for an outstanding ability visa, which is not that difficult, but it is many of you may qualify for it, but they don't even know that they are qualifying for that kind of visa. So you should talk to an attorney to see if you have. There are, you can always see that, online, go and check the O1 visa. There are categories which you may be, fitting into. So if you see that you fall into, or you more than 3 categories, you can, you fit into. So you contact an attorney and then probably start that process. And these are the few things about the general things about the H1, the immigration. So I will pass on to call. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer later. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carl Hansen. I have an office in Edison. I do mostly real estate. So I'm going to give you a brief outline of what a real estate transaction is about. Essentially, it starts out with a contract. If you're buying a house, you usually go to a real estate agent. The agent will prepare a contract for you, and you will sign that. One of the basic rules of the law is that all transactions for real estate must be in writing. So you can't have an oral agreement to buy a house. It must be in writing. When the transaction is completed, you get a deed, which shows that you're the owner of the property. And that deed gets recorded, if you're in Middlesex County, it gets recorded in New Brunswick at the county clerk's office. All of the deeds for property in Middlesex County have been recorded there since 1664, when the British took over from the Dutch. Okay, so basically a real estate transaction takes about 2 months to complete. It starts out, as I said, with a contract. Once you have a contract, the next step is that the buyer makes a loan application for a mortgage. That usually takes about 30 days. And you get what's called a commitment after that. while that's going on, one of the other things that you do is order a home inspection. There are various companies that do that. Your real estate agent usually helps you with that. They inspect the property and then you decide if there are any issues or concerns with the condition of the property, and you reach an agreement with the seller as to any repairs or whatever. While this is going on, your attorney will order what's called a title search. Title search determines who is actually the owner of the property so that you're buying from the right person, and whether or not there are any liens or judgments that would affect the property, such as a mortgage or a judgment against the seller. When that process is done, the title company issues what's called a title commitment. And then when the closing is complete at the end of the 2 months, you will receive what's called a title insurance policy. You pay for that. It's a one-time fee. It's based upon the value or the price that you're paying for the property. And what it essentially does is ensure that you are the owner of the property, so that if someone after the closing comes and says, I own the property, the title company will insure you or protect you and fight for you to protect your interest in the property. Another part of what you do in this process is to get a survey of the property. Survey is a document that shows the boundaries of your property. That's very important because the title company will also ensure the boundaries of your property, so that if a neighbor says, no, I own part of this, the title company will defend you and protect your interests. Okay, all of this then takes about 2 months. At the end of the process, we have what's called a closing. The parties sit down. In the past, everybody would come and sit at a table and everybody would sign, the seller would sign the deed, give you the deed, you'd pay the money to the seller, and that would be the end of the process. These days, sometimes the seller doesn't even show up. They send the signed documents to the title company's agent comes, signs all the mortgage papers for you. You sign the closing statement, pay the money, of course, and then the transaction is complete. The deed is then sent to the county clerk in New Brunswick. It's recorded, and then in about a month, it'll come back to you. Once your deed is recorded, even if you lose the deed afterwards, that's not a problem. All the records are there. The recording is there to make sure that you own the property. Also, if you're borrowing money, you will sign at the closing a document called a note, which is your promise to pay back the money to the bank, and a mortgage, which is a document that pledges the property that you're buying as security to pay back the note. If you don't pay back the note, the mortgage gives the bank the right to start a foreclosure proceeding against you. What that means is that they file a lawsuit. If they are successful, the sheriff will sell the property, take the money from the sale, pay off the bank, and essentially throw you out, and you lose all your rights in the property. Of course, if you pay the mortgage at the end of the 30 years, the mortgage will be discharged and there'll be no more lien on the property. That's essentially a real estate transaction in a very brief sense. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about wills too, or I can briefly give you an outline of what a will does? Okay, a will is essentially your instructions to distribute your property after your death. Obviously, you're not here, so the will has to govern what happens after you die. Okay. A will is a very formal document in New Jersey. It has to be witnessed by 2 people, and it's also notarized. When basically what your will says is 2 things. I leave my property any way you want. There's a wide range of things you can do. And then the second thing is that you notify or designate rather the person who is in charge of doing those things after you pass away. That person is called the executor. That person has the legal obligation and the legal right to distribute your property, pay off your bills, pay your funeral expenses, and do all those things after you passed away. Once you've signed a will, you keep the will. I know in India, I believe you register the will in your local state. You don't do that here. Nothing happens until the person dies. When that happens, the executor takes the will down to the courthouse in New Brunswick, for example, to the surrogate court. That is a special court just for estates. You present the original will, you present the death certificate, you pay a small fee. The executor fills out some forms that says he or she will carry out his duties in accordance with the law. And then the executor gets appointed. He gets a document called letters testamentary. That gives the person who's the executor the authority to do all the things that are necessary after you pass away. Okay. There are other things that have to be done in that situation, but that's basically what you need to do in order to have a will and then to present it when the person dies. Yeah, if there are any questions on wills or real estate, I know I went pretty quickly. If I went too fast, ask me any questions you want. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Carl. So we're a room full of immigrants. So I'm pretty sure all of us have touched on visas, green card, citizenship at some point in our tenure here. So Kavita's practice is quite familiar. And since we're all been here for many years, we're either, rented or bought a home. So real estate is also very familiar. So my practice is a little unfamiliar to some of you, especially intellectual property, comes into play more when you own a business. So I'm going to keep this more at a high level, and I will emphasize or reinforce what Kavita said about disclaimers. This is not legal advice, just information sharing. So intellectual property, for those of you who are not familiar, it is separate from real property, and in some ways more important than any of your other assets. So there are, I would say, four main types of intellectual property. So one is patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets. And then there is, know-how and all the other kind of intellectual property. So for patents, think of it as anytime anyone comes up with an invention, you come up with a new idea for whether it's a cancer drug or a new, mixer, grinder, or a new floor panel, anything like that, that can be protected by a patent. Now, trademark, if you have a business, you have a business name, you have a brand name, you have a logo, that's something that you can protect by a trademark. Now, copyright is something that protects the expression of your idea. Let's say you wrote a book. So the script of the book, or you came up with a script for a movie, all of that can be protected by a copyright. And finally, trade secrets, as the name implies, it's something that you want to keep secret from the rest of the trade. Think of, the recipe for Coke, $1 billion worth trade secret. So these are different areas of business that can be protected and should be protected. What happens, especially with small businesses, startups, is people don't really think about protecting intellectual property. That's not a priority, because the first priority is, how am I going to raise money for my business? How am I, getting an office? How am I hiring my technician or my manager or my programmer? So those, definitely have to take priority, but please also think about protecting your intellectual property, because if it's not done early enough, down the road, 5 years, most people will think, oh, I'll deal with it. I don't have the budget right now. So let me, think about it 5 years or 10 years when my business takes off. Guess what? It's too late by the time, because when the dispute comes, that's real. You have both in terms of safeguarding it and also it's both on the on someone else's idea. So that's IP litigation. And then I also handle other non-IP business litigation, straight up breach of contracts. You know, you've entered, all businesses have all kinds of contracts, supply agreements, distribution agreements, joint ventures, acquisitions, shareholder agreements. Anytime a dispute happens involving that agreement, whatever section, you know, oh, I did not get, even employment agreements, right? So all kinds of agreements, whenever there is a dispute involving, you know, that gets into litigation, I handle it as well. So I think that is, in a nutshell, what I do. I'm happy to, again, share in depth into it if it's of interest, or I can take questions too. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
So we'll
Padma.
start questions. We have a few questions. We'll start with that, or you have any other?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Sir, my name is Prasad. Of course, I wanted to ask immigration related questions, but right now I'm more mature. I forgot of all the information about people engaged totally and all that 15 years time. So now everybody will be jumping into the real estate and the will related the litigations that arise that we predict that may arise upon the demise of one of the spouses. You have already mentioned that the wills written in New Jersey are not registered.
That's correct.
So, and is because we are, is that the law or is that the option?
No, that's the law. There's no provision to register a will. Probably the reason historically that that's that way is that you can change a will anytime. So if you do a will last year and you do a will today, the one you do today, the most recent one, is the one that controls. So whenever you do a new will, one of the bits of advice that you should follow is you should rip up the old one so that there's no dispute as to which one is the one that controls. But in New Jersey and most everywhere in the United States, you do not register the wills. You only take the will down to the surrogate's court when the person passes away.
The next question is, the will that we have written, should it be through an attorney like your office, go there, sign and notify or notarize and then make a copy and keep retain a copy with the attorney's office? So maybe would that be a more stronger way or a more authentic way of keeping the will? Because we just signed, me and my wife, we signed together and we keep the document at home, which nobody knows. So, what
just-
is it, sir?
You just did a will at home? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if we do it at home, is
But
it
you
that
can-
authentic?
Okay, you can do a will anywhere, all right? But as I said before, the making of a will is a kind of a formal process, okay? You have to have two witnesses present with you when you sign it, and then it's notarized. The reason that it's notarized is that the law was changed maybe 20 years ago to have what's called a self-proving will. If you have a will with only two witnesses, it's still valid, but when somebody takes it down to the surrogate's court, one of the witnesses also has to go to sign a document saying, yes, I saw the person sign the will. If you have today what's called a self-proving will, which is notarized, usually by the attorney, that person who's a witness does not have to go to the court. The only one that will have to go to the court is the executor, because that person has to fill out some papers and take an oath that they will carry out the provisions of the will in accordance with the law. Okay, so you can have a will that you did at home that's perfectly valid if it's signed in accordance with the law.
So we are in the apprehension, maybe I might be wrong, or we might be wrong, many of the
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
we might be, we are, at least I am, under the apprehension that if something happens to us, either of us, the government will take away certain percentage of our wealth. Is it correct, sir?
If something happens to you.
Yeah.
Your estate is distributed in accordance with the instructions in your will. Okay, but that will has to be taken down to the courthouse in order to be probated. That's what the concept of probate is. You present the will, and then it's recognized as the official legal document saying how your property will be distributed after you die.
And one other last question regarding the wealth system. So many of our Indian community, let me talk about only the Indian community, I don't talk about other nations, but when they're not citizens, when they are like on H1B, if they're on green cards, if they're not on citizenship system, how does this work, sir?
Citizenship is not a factor, okay? It doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or not. And your will can even be used to distribute property that you own in another country. Okay, what you would do in general, each country's different, but what would happen is that your will that you probated here in New Jersey would be taken, or a copy, a certified copy would be taken to the other place. And in accordance with their laws, it would be the equivalent of being probated, so that over there, the person would have the authority to do everything that they would do here under your will. And that also applies, by the way, to different states in the United States. If you own property in California and you live in New Jersey and you passed away here, your will would have to be probated in California for the distribution of your property that you have there. Okay. Also, I should add, if you have no will, there's a similar process, okay, where you go down to the courthouse and your next of kin usually makes an application to be appointed as the administrator of your estate. And if there's no objection and the court rules that that person is the one to be appointed, then that person has the legal responsibility to distribute your property in accordance with the law, okay? That's called intestate succession. And in the laws of New Jersey, as in every other state, if you have no will, the law tells that person how to distribute your property upon your death.
Thank you, sir.
And one more question. I'll just add to your thing that I always suggest that you go to an attorney and formalize your will, because even though he says that you can do it at your home, most of us, probably including me, would probably try to have a professional do it rather than we doing it at home, and the professional will have a copy of the will as well. So I would definitely seek a professional advice to do a will.
Intentionally, I have addressed that not to do point, so through you. I know that we have to do it in the proper way, so that was the reason I.
One more, a little bit of information. Sometimes people will make a will and do everything in the proper way, and then they'll say, oh, I wanted to change. I don't want to leave my stamp collection to my cousin. I want to leave it to my brother. And they cross out that and write the brother in. That voids the entire will.
Will, yeah.
So if you're ever going to make a change in your will, go back to the lawyer, of course, and have the lawyer do it formally and properly.
Thank you.
One request to the panel is that please repeat the question, because we have audience on the YouTube. I don't know if these
Okay.
questions are coming to them or not.
Okay.
And for the audience, please ask one question, okay? Because we have many people who have a lot of questions, okay? With that, I have my question.
Okay.
So, can you tell, like, when you use will versus when you use trust?
When you
Will
use,
and
Trust, and when you use will and when you use trust.
a trust is different than a will, okay? A trust is a transfer, I'm sorry, a trust is a transfer of your property. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, a trust is a transfer of your property to a legal entity that you create. Okay, so that you're no longer the legal owner of the property, And that way it protects you if you get sued and the property is owned by the trust, it's not at risk, okay? A trust is essentially an entity that owns your property, but the property is used for a beneficiary, that would be you. So there would be a trust, but you would be the beneficiary. In other words, you get to use the property. Okay, that's, in a nutshell, that's basically what a trust is.
I have a follow-up question for that.
Okay,
So.
yeah,
I'll just check it.
Hello.
I think that is much more clear than this. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, how will it be different from an LLC or a?
Oh, okay. An LLC is also a legal entity, but that's a business formation, okay? Like a corporation, an LLC conducts business, okay? You can also transfer your property to an LLC, but that's not the same as a trust. For instance, a corporation has shares, like General Motors, you would buy shares in that, and the shareholders are the owner of that corporation. An LLC is a similar company that does business, but it's like a partnership where there are members who own certain percentage of that, and that can change from time to time and so forth. A trust is where you transfer your property to an entity that controls your property for your benefit. And the person who's in charge of that is called the trustee.
Yeah, can we put the rental property under the trust?
Can you?
Put a rental property on a trust?
Yeah, you can do that. You can put it in a trust, you can put it in a corporation, you can put it in an LLC. Okay,
Can LLC be
Yeah,
under a
but,
trust?
but usually people put their own property in a trust so that they can take the benefit of using the property and they have the protection in case there's a lawsuit or something similar to that.
The tax is, is the trust a is the trust, I mean, does the trust have its own tax on it?
Can it be a non-profit? That's what your question is,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Can a trust be a non-profit?
Not really, I don't, yes, there are trusts that can be nonprofit, but if you're talking about putting your property in a trust, that's not usually what it is. A trust becomes a legal entity and gets a tax identification number, just like you would have a social security number, or your business would have its own tax ID number.
Are there any tax differences between an LLC and a trust? I mean,
Now you're beyond what I do. You need to talk to your accountant on that.
We will be closing at 4 o'clock. Let all the questions asked, so that if it is very continuing, later we can ask. Restart the same question. Let all of them get the opportunity.
What point do you go for a trust? Like in a normal, let's say I have a own house, right? Would I go in for a trust or, go just release enough to transfer the property?
Well, if you own your own house, people might put your house in a trust in order to avoid, judgments if you get sued. They might also put it in a trust in order to avoid the cost of, when you get older, if you have to go into a nursing home and so forth like that. But there are rules and limitations that might not make that an effective choice depending upon when you do it and so forth. Again, that's something where if you're going to do a trust, you need to sit down with an attorney and talk about the very details of what you want to do, because every trust can be different.
Here's just one more question, right? If I have some investment properties that are under an LLC, can I put the LLC under the trust?
I suppose you could, but why would you do that? Unless the trust owns that property, then the LLC becomes kind of superfluous, okay? Again, I mean, there might be a particular circumstance where that might be something that you might want to do, but in the normal course of things, that doesn't really work. I mean, it works,
Can
but
we
it's
switch
not.
to it?
Yeah, it's case specific, you have to tell the circumstances why you need to do that, and then they can suggest accordingly.
Now it's time to stump.
so I have one question for immigration and one question for real estate because we both are working. So anyway, yeah. So my name is Srinivas Radhakrishna. I think if I keep away. that
No,
is
it's
more
better.
clear.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Srinivas Radhakrishna. The question to be legal related perspective. So I see that nowadays, like a lot of students comes on, MS, they want to get into, they get the OPT, CPT and all that, and while filing the H1. As you said, they can go online to pay, it's very simple payment and they can do and
Mhm.
to a company, they can get it, right? Still the company has to play a role there, or individually, the candidate can go and apply for it.
H1, no. You need a petitioner, you need an employer, still those things, it is not, H1 is very employer specific. So you have to go through an employer, there should be an employer and an employee. So definitely you need a petitioner to go through an H1.
So that is something like from day one.
Yeah, it's always like that.
Following.
It's always like that, even though it's,
The biggest thing is like while filing it, right? So people play a smart role like, okay, I'll file individual to a company, which are known company, and also to a company which is well known in the market. So these kind of things, double submissions will happen, right?
that happens, yeah.
Yes. So from the company perspective, is there a way where company can play a safe role in that? Because I don't know what will be the impact in the situation. But how company can take a precautionary measures, or is there any like background? Usually we do a background check before we submit to clients or anything. Similar way, is there any check where we can do for double submission, just to avoid the double submission?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing where one company will know whether the beneficiary has filed through another company. No, but with the lottery, they have said that it is be beneficiary specific. But until now, we don't know how logistically it's going to work,
Mhm.
because there can be potential issues where like one company can be consular processing and one company can be a change of status, how the service is going to work, and whichever the employee has to choose one company. That's what currently with the H1 modernization, they have said that it will be beneficiary specific. So we are still waiting to see how it's going to turn out. But definitely, I don't think, I understand the pain, because you spend a lot of money, H1B beneficiary cannot spend anything for the H1B. And the smaller companies put in all the money thinking that, the person is going to only file with this company and be an employee. But this is the risk of the H1B business, I would say. So where you will not know, but you can just take as a thing, like you can take um, probably something like from a beneficiary, H1B beneficiary, that it's the only company he's applying through or something like that. But I don't think how much it controls. It's just a deterrent, that's it. But that is the risk you take. So as an H1B company, that you will not know until he joins that where he's going to join. He or she is going to join.
Currently, we are taking as a note, like saying that, yes, they did not apply anywhere and this is the company they are approaching.
That's what yeah.
That is still won't help.
Yeah. You see, you can take an affidavit or a declaration from the beneficiary stating that this is the only company I'm filing. Last year, that's what many attorneys suggested, because there is always, it was so much of restrictions on the petitioning company that whether you have collaborated with another company to file for the H1, multiple H1Bs. So that is the time we suggested that get a affidavit or a declaration saying that this is the only company I'm filing, and I have not, the company has not colluded with another company or something like that. So, but I don't know, like, if the beneficiary is not truthful, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do. But you can protect yourself with that note stating that, hey, I did not do anything wrong.
That's what, meaning on the paper, we are taking care of all those, but from the.
Yeah, the expense, you can't do anything. That is the risk, the big risk. Yeah.
Still no solution.
No solution for that.
I mean, maybe I will jump in just more. in addition to just getting a declaration saying that, they haven't applied, to increase the deterrent effect, take a deposit from them and say, hey, if it turns out that you have, not been truthful and actually applied to someone else, then this deposit, you'll forfeit the deposit. So that could be a deterrent.
Is that allowed?
Say no. No, because he can always say that he had taken a deposit for the
Technically,
H1B.
you're telling me to go to jail.
Okay.
No, he's talking about
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, is it legally not allowed?
H1Bs, yeah. H1B because it's legally, you are not supposed to get any money from the beneficiary. So even if it's a deposit, he can always say that it is, they got it for the H1B. So the petitioning company will be in big trouble.
I guess
for
then
that.
it depends on how you define that. Not a deposit, definitely not a deposit, but here, if this is like more for protect, if you breach the agreement, then these are the liquidated damages that you have to pay.
There can, but for H1Bs, it is always a risky thing with any money involved with the from the beneficiary.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
No,
Always so many fraudulent transactions are being happening.
Right, because they can say that this is what he forced me to write. So this is,
From
Sure.
client perspective, I think you gave it to skill, there is no solution.
What's-
So we have to play our safe role.
I know that is a risk, always there's a risk with the H1B companies because even after so much of, going through the trouble, dealing with the attorneys and getting all the documents in, the person joins and the next day he will be going to another company. So that is always there, but that's also there, like, the employees are there for almost 6 years with the company. So it's all,
From
That
this
is-
question, so this is from the real estate, you said when the property gets closed, the closing, whoever is taking care of the banks, they're working with the banks as well as the, what do you call, the county office, right? So the boundaries, what you said.
That's a survey.
So, yes, that's a survey, right?
Right.
So that survey, is it mandatory every county?
No,
or-
it's not mandatory, but it's a very good advice to get that, okay? Because you then know exactly where the boundaries of your property are. You might have a neighbor who put a fence that's on your property. There might be a shared driveway. You need to know what the limits are of your property and what rights other people in the neighboring properties might have or that you might have. It's a very, very wise thing to get a survey. The cost of a survey is about $800, okay? If you want them to put corner markers in at each corner so that if you put a fence up, you have an idea where the line is, that's usually about another $200 or $300.
That's how the seller will communicate to the county, right?
The buyer gets the survey, not the seller.
Property they are selling, right?
Right.
So then why it's not becoming valued? Again, why the buyer has to go and make a separate deed like $800?
No. Okay. The survey shows the boundaries of your property on a paper, okay? When you get the deed in words will describe all the way around. It says like beginning at a point 200 feet from the corner, going 100 feet in this direction, and then all the way around. That's called, in legal terms, a meets and bounds description. In words that describes the physical location of your property. A survey shows where that is on a map, essentially, and done by a licensed surveyor who plots it. They go out with equipment and they go all the way around so that it's accurate. From time to time, those readings could change, okay? And you do it now so that when you buy the property, you know exactly where it is.
That will be there on the paper, as you said, but let's say, let me give an example, like if I want to put a fence. Right, then the county office says, hey, you know what, we have your boundaries, this is what the property got. But still you have to get another copy, like where you have to clearly mention.
Then you would,
So that's an additional cost, right? So people, when they buy a house, they don't have a clue for the county, what all the documents are mandatory from the buyer's perspective and from seller perspective.
again, survey is not mandatory, but it's very much advisory.
So many things are.
Okay, if you have a survey and then you later want to go put up a fence, you don't go to the county, you go to the local municipal government. And you may need to get a permit. And in order to get a permit, in some municipalities, they may require you to have a survey to show where the fence is going to be put. Even if that's not required, the company that comes and installs your fence wants to know where they should put it. Okay, because if they put it 1 foot over on your neighbor's property, your neighbor can sue you and make you take the fence down.
That's
So,
true, that's
yeah.
true, but the criticality here is that the municipal office says, okay, to issue a permit, you need to get the boundaries from the survey.
You show them that survey. That's
That's
usually,
not helping, that's what I'm saying, that's not helping from the county. I recently went and I experienced this.
Well.
And when I called the property closer seller, he says, you know what, that's an option.
Right.
For the county, but for the municipality, it's 90. So now I'm stuck, I have to pay like 800 or.
In other words, you're
$1,000
saying
to
that
put my fence.
in order for you to put up a fence in your town, the town requires that you have a survey to show where the fence should be put up.
That's
Right.
right, we have a
Okay.
survey, when they constructed the initial map, everything they have.
How old was it?
It's like 3 years.
Actually.
We'll take the next question.
Right away.
Yeah, that's a client.
My question about laws of computer. So do you have any suggestions on how we can get started in law?
Good here.
No,
No, if you
Law
want,
and
yeah, she can
career.
take, yeah. No, but you want to take the,
I can, happy to. So, are you talking about when you're in high school or when you're in college?
Yeah.
Okay, so high school, there is definitely internship opportunities, typically with the local, DA's office or the municipal court or, other attorneys. Usually attorneys don't take in high school students. Usually they would want at least law school. But there certainly are opportunities at the DA's office where high school students can intern in the summer. So that's one way to start off. Or, just work in a legal office, but not as a, just as a paralegal or a secretary or something, just to kind of get exposure to the field.
Legal
Or shadow.
services.
Other thing I would suggest is shadowing. Shadow a lawyer for a day or 2 days, and see if that's what you like. You could, there are like our bar association, for example, organized just this summer, a bunch of high school students, they went and attended a hearing in court. They observed a trial. They got to speak with the lawyers and the judges afterwards to just, get a sense. So those are some of the ways.
nice.
I have a simple question. I know that you are with the business litigation and you are writing a big document to protect us for the future litigation. What do you mean by intellectual property?
But
So,
she's.
yes, so I guess maybe he was.
That-
So intellectual property, I think I touched on it before. So
Yeah.
there are 4 different types. One is patents to protect your ideas and inventions. Typically, all the ideas, if you watch Shark Tank, all the people that come up with ideas, most of those ideas can be protected by a patent. If it's a new product, new process, new way of manufacturing, those are some of the things that you can patent. The other way to protect is trademark. That is to protect your brand. Like Nike has the check mark. Everybody knows, check mark is Nike. So that's the brand. So you protect it by a trademark. And the third one is copyright, which is expression of an idea. If you thought about a story and you wrote it down, that piece of paper, that story can be protected by copyright. Music can be protected by copyright, the lyrics, the words, the rhythm, the sound recording, all of those can be copyrighted. Then the trade secrets is anything that you want to maintain as a secret and you don't want your competitors to know, whether it is your manufacturing technology, your business processes, your customer lists, things like that. Those are all considered trade secrets. So that's, main types of intellectual property.
Movies can be copyrighted.
I'm sorry,
Movie stories
Yeah.
can be copyrighted.
absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
It's the same story comes again. With a different guy.
So when we say copyright protects the exact expression of that idea. So let's say you wrote one version of the story, right? Most of the story might be same, but if you change a couple of things here and there, then the question becomes, is it substantially different enough to merit its own copyright, or does it fall under, different version? So, it's considered like a derivative work or something similar that it's covered by the original copyright.
I have a question. Patent. What happens if a patent is rejected and can be appealed, or is there a limit on how many times we can appeal? What is the next step for us?
Sure. So typically, I assume you're talking about a utility patent. There are two types of patents. One is a utility patent, which protects the idea. One is a design patent, which protects the appearance or the design of a product. So for utility patent, it's typical to get a rejection from the patent examiner. Two rejections are very common. And anytime you get a rejection, it will specify how many, what's the time period in which you can put in a response. It could be 3 months. You can get an extension of time for another 3 months or another 6 months. But usually you will be able to put in a response, explain why you believe this particular, in patent law, we call it as a reference. The examiner will come back and say, hey, this particular idea was already disclosed or described in this particular reference or patent or a publication. So therefore, you're not allowed to get a patent. So your attorney has to come back and explain why that article does not disclose what is in your invention. So that's that process can go back and forth. There is not really like a limit on how many rejections. After a while, either the examiner gives up or the applicant gives up.
Actually, my question is, if it gets rejected, is it going to be verified again if we resubmit it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you
Because it's already got rejected, they blindly they don't reject it.
No, not at all. It's almost it's almost unusual for a patent application when you file it that it gets approved without any rejections. I mean, the vast majority of them you will get a rejection, because patent is something that's really unique and it's very important. So it's not that easy to get it. It's a long process. It takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years from the time you apply and, ultimately you get it allowed. So there's a lot of back and forth that goes between the examiner and the lawyer, trying to convince that, yes, what you have invented is new, novel, and it's not obvious from what is already out there.
And one more thing, I have utility patent is for 20 years and design patent is for 12 years. That's what I remember. If it is a utility patent, after you get the patent approved, then it will be for 20 years. Is that right?
Yes.
From the approval onwards, it will be 20 years.
Yes, and sometimes if, the patent office procedure takes way too long and it's not the applicant's fault, the term of the patent also gets adjusted. But that's a common idea.
Yeah. If it is that, if it is submitted here, can we submit the same patent in other country also?
You can apply for the same patent, but you have to put in a different application that complies with the requirements of that particular country.
Thank you.
One question on the immigration. So you talked about sibling sponsorship, right? Being a citizen, you're saying it's about 20 years now. So what about the EB5 category? I mean, how easy to get a sibling on EB5?
Yeah, anyway, that then it not be a sibling, but anybody can be on a EB5. EB5 is one specialized area, which I don't do, but I can share my knowledge, which is if the person is here, it is there are different categories in the EB5s. Currently, it is around 800,000 if you want to invest in a regional, in a targeted employment area. So it's called T. So if you can invest 800,000 plus in one of those areas, it is current. The visa bulletin is current if the person is here. So that if you apply now, you will get an EAD and the advance parole as well. So you can file the adjustment of status here. You can file for the EB5 here. And also, I mean, the best thing is it's current now. But if they are in India, obviously it's going to take a longer time because it can take up to 4 or 5 years for the approval. And then if it is current that time, they have to go to the Mumbai consulate and take the interview and come back here. And you have to show the source of funds. It could be gifts. There are, many, ways they have to check whether it is it's your money or if it's gifted. The source of funds is so important in an EB5. So that is one area if people are thinking about getting the green card sooner. EB5 is one area you can look into it. And also EB once, the patent can really work, it's can be considered as one of the award, can take care of one of the category for the EB ones also. You can probably look into that as well. So yeah, definitely EB5 is an option.
We have one question for you.
So I know you guys talked about this in general, but for entrepreneurs, how do they protect that IP of their work? And what are like 3 general points to keep in mind when doing that?
Sure. So I would say for entrepreneur or startups, the first thing they should do is actually know what are the things that are capable of protecting in that business, right? So as I mentioned, there is definitely the trademark, the name. Every entrepreneur business will have a name, and if you have a logo, that is the first step. Okay? So know what are the things that identify what is the intellectual property that is worth protecting. That's the first step. The second step is have a strategy for IP, when you want to protect it, and how you want to go about it. Figure out what the priorities are. Trademarks, I would suggest every business should invest in protecting a trademark. It doesn't cost much, but at least it protects your brand. Patents are a little more expensive. Not everybody actually has an idea or an invention that is new enough that qualifies for patent, but definitely think about that. The other thing to consider for startups is non-disclosure agreements. Anytime you're talking about your idea or your business strategy with a third party, have them, sign an NDA that they're going to keep your business information confidential and not share it with others. So those are at least 2 things that they should definitely, think about. And as in any field, I'd say talk to a lawyer and at least get some advice on what's the best things to do at that stage.
Yeah, you spoke about the E3 visa for Australian citizens, right? Is there something also for the mainland?
I think it's Australian is what it is. Yeah, it's Australian.
Non-disclosure agreement, is it legal if we sign before that presentation was given?
Yes, if the party signs it, yes, it is legal. I mean, yeah, there's nothing, non-disclosures are allowed. If that's where you're going, absolutely allowed, and they're routinely used as well. The only advice or thing that I would point out is don't just, print off something from the internet and say, hey, this is NDA, sign it, because it has to be customized to your particular business, your particular meeting, venture, whatever it is, to make sure that what you want to protect is actually getting protected by that language.
Even for the employment agreement, I'll say that many companies, they just, because every state differs with the employment, what you can have and what you cannot have, because many people just take it from their friends and draft an employment agreement. I would say that, when you start a company, if you are going to have employees, just have it professionally done. So see an employment attorney and work, what is allowed, because as I said, every state is different. So make it a professional employment agreement.
since you mentioned employment agreement, going back to the question you asked, what should a startup keep in mind? That's another thing to keep in mind is who do you want to be the owner of the IP? Right? That is something that an entrepreneur or a startup should think about. Are they going to keep the ownership of the IP in whoever is the founder? Or, is it going to be shared? There are pros and cons for everything, but that is something that the business owner should at least think about. Who is going to own the IP?
I have a question about securities law. I'm not sure if any of you covers that. I actually have questions on both sides. How to take a company to IPO. That is one thing, and another thing is, I have a lot of stock in a company. It was traded in public at once upon a time, and it is not in trading anymore. Got kicked out of NASDAQ, and then from also from the Finfields. So and that company still works and it is profit making. So how to deal with that? I'm not sure you can answer this.
I will stay away from securities law. It's highly specialized. It's definitely not my area. But if it is something to do with, like, you have an agreement, you're not sure whether you can enforce that agreement, that is something that I can, certainly look at, or any other lawyer can look at and, advise.
Since you're in the New York bar, can you suggest a security lawyer?
Yes, yes. In fact, people in my firm can handle that.
Oh, wonderful. I'll leave it.
Yeah, I have one more question. If actually like I have not done anything, and then how do I suppose it, by God's grace, we have actually both of the parents, they are expired. So what happens to the properties, especially in United States? Does it go to the kids, or how does it work? Like,
So-
no will is done. By the
I'll
parents.
repeat the question. So she doesn't have a will, so how does the intestate succession work?
Parents doesn't. That's
The
what-
parents,
Parents doesn't have the will.
yeah, that's
How
what.
does the properties goes to the kids?
When you do not have a will, your property gets distributed in accordance with the laws of the state. Okay? And it depends on who your heirs are and so forth. But there's a statutory provision that says how your property will be distributed if you have no will. Okay? So if you have children and you're married, it depends upon who are your heirs. Okay? And the administrator of your estate is obligated to distribute your property in accordance with those laws. Okay, that's why it's important to have a will, because then you get to decide how your property gets distributed.
And then most importantly, people with, the parents with younger children, they should definitely have this will, where they have to mention, like, in case something happens to both the parents, who will get the custody of the children. So until
Yeah, that's a good point. If you have children under the age of 18, it's important to have a will for two purposes. You need to designate a guardian. That's the person who will be in charge of raising them and have their physical custody until they become 18. And then you need to name a trustee. That's the person who will receive the property that they're entitled to and control that property, like a bank account or whatever, until they reach the age of majority, which is 18. So that's very important to have a will if you have young children.
As we said, right, as the sir said in the beginning, saying that will has been written at home, not registered, not signed under any attorney. And I show, my kids can show that on the, without the parents.
It's not valid. No, she's asking if the will is not signed and it's at home and it's not formalized, it's void.
It's fine.
So, yeah,
That's why, that's why it's very important to execute or sign your will in the formal process that's required by the law. Because if there's a mistake in that, it becomes invalid.
But the two witnesses, under two witnesses, the will has been done.
She-
What can- Is it acceptable or not?
she is asking if two witnesses sign my will and I keep it at home, but it has to be notarized. It has to be as he said, like, it has to be notarized, and you can do it at home without the help of an attorney as well. But it has to be properly documented, as he said, like, no corrections, no additions, it's allowed. So that's what we always suggest, go to an attorney and have it done properly. So that way, you can have a peace of mind as well.
You can keep your will at home after you sign it. You should keep it in maybe your safe deposit box or a place at home where someone knows where it is, so that when you pass away, they can have access to it and then take it down to the courthouse. Okay,
What if there's no witness signatures, but only a notarized? What if a notarized?
Not as-
no. Again, a will is a very formal document. If it's not done in the proper way, completely, it becomes invalid, and then that person is considered to have died, what we say, intestate, without a will, and then the property gets distributed according to the statutes and not according to what you wrote down.
Once the kids grow above 18, right, should we change the will?
Is it mandatory to change the will, or should it be still be valid? Like, let's say I had a will, my kids are young. It's now 10 years, right? They are adults.
Well, if your will says, if my children are under 18, I appoint somebody as a guardian and so forth, and then they become over 18, those provisions don't count anymore because they're not necessary.
But the bill is valid.
Yes, the will is still valid.
Now I see that in the market, the way this will, the people, the way they are marketing, right? So there is a lot of deviation I'm seeing, like you said, we have to approach the attorney, right? Which is a right way, right? But now people started coming up with those so many franchises with the financial, saying that I am the financial advisor. I know all these things, come to me, I'll do it. And the same advisor within family say, go to website, download that, just sign it and keep it with you. So these type of misleading, it's a misleading technical.
Absolutely.
So what is that advice you give, because it is getting recorded, what sort of advice you want to give?
Go
Still we are
to,
saying that it goes to attorney, someone has to go to attorney,
If you're-
but still they need some advice on.
if you're going to do a will, go to an attorney. As simple as
problem.
that.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, right, what is that, insurance companies, they are also doing the bills, right, online bills, all those things, we have to pay 200 or 100.
Yeah, as I said, like, every state has a different, requirement. So it's always advisable to go to an attorney to have that peace of mind that you have done it right.
And a simple will is not that expensive. And, it's worth the security and insurance of doing it the right way. Okay. I guess on that, we're almost done.
One last question. For the real estate, are there any special considerations for commercial real estate versus one that individuals buy?
No, he's asking what about the commercial real estate and the residential real estate? What is the question? You have any
Are there any special considerations? For
any
commercial-
considerations by whom?
commercial for the buyer?
Buyer, yeah.
Well, for real estate transactions that are commercial, it's slightly different, okay? It's more buyer beware when you're doing a commercial transaction. Usually, there'll be provisions for the buyer to do what's called due diligence. They'll check the property for any kind of environmental issues, such as maybe pollution or whatever. If you're buying a commercial property, that could be a factor in your decision and your investigation of going forth. It's similar in general, but there are particular differences involving a commercial transaction that need you to do a little bit more due diligence in investigating what you're buying before you conclude the sale.
Time for one more question. What's a living will?
Okay. A living will is not really a will, okay? In New Jersey, we have what's called a living will, but it's really two different documents, okay? One is called a medical directive, okay? There's a standard form that you can get online, and it's pretty simple to fill out. Basically, what it says is you tell your medical caregivers what you want to be done in a case where you're unable to communicate with them, such as if you're unconscious and you want them to continue to give you food and treatment, or you don't want to do that. Those are the kinds of things that would be in the medical directive. In other words, a person who might be long-term unconscious or unresponsive, this would give their doctor guidance in what they want done or what they don't want done. The other form is appointing a medical kind of representative or an attorney in fact who will tell the doctors or have the authority to give the doctors instructions on what treatment can be done for you if you're unable to communicate. It's simply like a power of attorney. Those are the two main things in general.
Yeah. Thank you. I think we need to wind up because
This is a topic really, many three people are like from various areas. It's really interesting. It's needed to the society.
thank you.
A lot of guidance is needed and proper direction is needed.
Absolutely. I always call people internet lawyers because they come, oh, my friend got this. My friend did this through online, but every case is different. Every state is different here. So you have to be very, very cautious and to have the valid document. And particularly in my thing, your status at stake. So don't see like online and do something which, you may end up in a big trouble. So it's always better to approach an attorney and get the right kind of advice. So thank you so much. I know, even I learned a few things through them. So it is always a pleasure to have these kind of sessions so that, it's a learning, we have a takeaway from today's session, all of us
That's
do.
a big thanks to you. TFAS.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So, I want to take this opportunity to thank the three attorneys. What do you get when someone is a lawyer and a librarian? Right? All of the information you need, but you don't understand most of it. Okay, and that's why you have to, thanks that they're here, so you know who they are. So if you have any legal questions, you should go through an attorney and then work with them. I want to take this opportunity to thank the panel. Okay, so we'll stop at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.